im se svima, i malima i velikima, i bogatima i siromašnima, i slobodnjacima i robovima, dade žig na njihovu desnu ruku ili na čela njihova, te da nitko ne može ništa kupiti ili prodati, osim onoga ko ima žig ili ime zvijeri ili broj imena njezina.
Pozdrav, dragi narode, dobrodošli u još jednu epizodu Slobodni. Današnja tema su cjepiva, ali uglavnom pedijatrijska cjepiva. Ta tema je izuzetno važna i ona izaziva puno kontroverziji. Naime, slušamo redovito, slušaj struku, vjeruj znanosti. I nažalost, primijetio sam ja, pogotovo koji pratim stalno, da je to postala floskula kojim se u stvari služe kao marketingom. Pokušavaju se uvjeriti samo zato jer se nazivaju stručnjacima da ono što oni govore istina. Zato vrlo često ne nude ništa. Zato sam se potrudio da nađem nekoga koji je uistinu stručan, koji uistinu istražuje i to tako radi već godinama i ima impresivnu karijeru iza sebe i ima što reći o ovoj temi i o još nekim dodatnim temama, ali da ne širim previše jer sam i sam jako uzbuđen da ga mogu predstaviti vama. On je doktor iz Sjedinjenih država, njegovo ime je gospodin Peter McCullough. Hello, Mr. McCullough. Welcome to our show in Croatia.
Thank you.
Can you say a few words about your background for people who doesn't know you?
I'm a medical doctor in the United States. I'm in practice both internal medicine, which is adult medicine, and cardiology. I'm also an epidemiologist. I study the distribution and determinants of diseases. I'm the president of the McCullough Foundation, which is a leading research and an academic investigative organization in the United States. And I'm also the chief scientific officer of the Wellness Company. That's a large nationwide health company that's offering telemedicine and nutraceuticals and supplements, medication kits. So I've dedicated the last 5 years to providing solutions to the United States and to the world regarding the pandemic and also, what could happen in the future.
Yes, and you have very huge experience during pandemic because that's this time when I recognized you, when I saw you first time. And can you explain our audience what happened during these first years of pandemic?
Well, the first year of the pandemic in 2020, remember there's no vaccine. The virus was its most severe form called the Wuhan strain or the wild type strain. Then it mutated to the alpha strain. I got sick during the first year, so I had the more severe virus. And we were developing early treatment protocols since about March of 2020. We published the McCullough protocol, the most widely used protocol in the world, in August of 2020 in the American Journal of Medicine. And that protocol, which uses about 6 to 8 different products in a sequence, has been attributed to saving tens of millions of lives and sparing hundreds of millions of hospitalizations. We had U.S. Senate hearings on this November 19th, 2020. So the big story in 2020 was early multi-drug treatment.
And after that, of course, you came up publicly and started to have questions about decision of public health authorities because it looks like they decided to go in the way of to take vaccine for everybody. But you had some doubts. Why?
Yeah, so the public health authorities all over the world were very slow to recommend any form of outpatient treatment or treatment at home. Yet that's where all of the benefit was starting in a high-risk patient, starting multi-drug therapy on day one. And so in the United States, we didn't have our first oral drug available for home use until 2 years into the pandemic. It was basically early 2022 did we have Paxlovid from Pfizer. So the first year, it was all about early treatment. We were told a vaccine was coming. And I published an editorial in the journal The Hill, which is a political journal in the House, the White House, and the U.S. Senate read. And the title of that opinion editorial in August of 2020 was The Great Gamble of the COVID-19 Vaccine Development Program. And the reason why it was a gamble is because the lead vaccines, Pfizer and Moderna, were the genetic code for the spike protein. The spike protein is the spine on the surface of the virus. This is the lethal part of the virus. So to inject the genetic code for the lethal part of the virus with no ability to shut off production of the lethal protein, I thought was a great, great gamble. And sadly, a tragic gamble. I was right.
Yes, and that's why you suffered. You lost your job, and you were pressed from the public. And well, that was a very unpleasant experience. And I know lots of my guests also had the same experience.
You know, we should question and we should have a healthy skepticism of new biopharmaceutical products, particularly genetic products. So Pfizer and Moderna were new genetic products, but also AstraZeneca and Janssen were genetic vaccines. And so, you know, virtually none of us have ever taken a genetic product ever in our bodies. Yet this was the first time that people actually received an injection of a genetic code. The genetic code for the foreign Wuhan spike protein that was engineered in the Wuhan Institute of Virology in Wuhan, China. So everybody who took the vaccine, Pfizer, Moderna, Janssen, or AstraZeneca, they have the genetic code from China for the lethal part of the virus, the spike protein.
What is the difference between vaccines before and now these mRNA vaccines?
Prior vaccines were either an inactivated protein like the tetanus toxoid, a killed vaccine like the killed influenza vaccine, or a live attenuated vaccine like the chickenpox or shingles vaccine. But never were vaccines genetic code, synthetic genetic code. This was a brand new radical idea, and it had never been utilized in a vaccine for humans in the past.
Some of my guests call him gene therapy, not vaccines. How you can call it vaccine, or is it maybe new name for this kind of treatment?
Well, the companies that make them and the public health agencies consider them vaccines. I'll call them that, but they're not traditional. It's probably better to term them, they are gene transfer technology programs. So the genetic code for the protein is installed in the human body. It can't be removed. It's made permanent by a process called pseudouridination, and then it produces an endless supply of this lethal foreign protein called the spike protein. The spike protein causes heart damage. It damages blood vessels and causes bursting blood vessels, stroke, blood clots, immune problems, and then it may be related to cancer. So we should never have a long-acting genetic code for a dangerous foreign protein in our body. It's a disaster of an idea.
I'm following your work all the time, and I see you are still researching and you are still publishing lots of very interesting and very important papers, and you published a lot of even in this year. Can you tell our audience, what did you find about these mRNA vaccines?
What we found about the mRNA vaccines, an important paper by Lalani was published demonstrating that governments have been working on messenger RNA since about mid-1985. They had invested tens of billions of dollars in messenger RNA. The United States government in 2012, the research division of the military called DARPA published on their website, it's still on their website today, a program called the ADEPT P3 program, where our military declared that they would end pandemics within 60 days using messenger RNA technology. So it wasn't a new idea to use it for COVID. It simply was a military idea that was operationalized worldwide.
Now we are facing, after 2-3 years, when was this vaccine rollout, and almost, I think it was administered about 30 billion doses around the world. We are hearing lots of now complaints about adverse events, but also from the other side, there is a lot of people who are saying that these vaccines saves of millions of lives. What your research telling about this?
We should always consider safety first. So safety always trumps or outmarks efficacy. What we know on safety is that it could be as many as 17 million people have lost their lives due to the vaccine, due to vaccine injury syndromes. And a paper by Dennis Rancourt was published in 2023 supporting that number. In the United States, it's estimated around 550,000 Americans have died of the vaccine. About 1,000 die on the first day they take the shot, another 1,000 die the second day, and the numbers are grossly underreported to the Center for Disease Control. There are fatal cases and case series of heart damage, stroke, neurologic damage, immune problems. So this is well known that the vaccine causes death. Now the question is the death caused by the vaccine, was it outweighed by a potential benefit? And no randomized trial demonstrated that the vaccines reduced death as a primary outcome. There's no valid non-randomized studies. There's only been studies that have used an estimate. So for a paper in New England Journal of Medicine by Ioannidis and colleagues, estimated that the vaccines reduced COVID mortality by 50% in the pre-Omicron phase and then by 25% in the Omicron phase. But that's just an estimate. That's a guess. It's not proven. And then those numbers were applied to the world to derive a number of 2 to 3 million lives saved, which is pretty small, even if those estimates are correct. The consent forms of vaccines do not indicate that they reduce mortality because they don't. The vaccines didn't stop the infection, didn't stop transmission, and they didn't reduce mortality. So we're left with a situation where the vaccines essentially didn't work, and they caused significant harm, and sadly, people have lost their lives.
How is possible that there's papers publishing this kind of research? For example, I saw the paper from Lancet, and there they said that even 14 to 20 million lives is saved. This paper, what you're mentioning, it's saying 2.5 million. That's really strong number. And if they don't have a proof, people believe science. Everybody say you have to believe science, but we can't believe in something, some kind of papers that they are saying this, as you said, with a very strong, a very weak proof.
Well, people should know. I mean, many people in the United States took the vaccine. 81% of Americans took at least one shot. 70% took 2 shots. I mean, they should know that they took the shots and they still got the infection. Some still hospitalized and died. Same thing in Croatia. So you can simply ask, how many people took the vaccine and still died? And, no country will release that information of who took the vaccine and who didn't, and who died and who didn't. No country will. The only country where the data are available is the Czech Republic. And there it's clear the vaccines did not save lives. More people died who took the vaccine. Now, we know globally that more people died in 2021 when the vaccines came out than they did in 2020. And the virus was a stronger virus there. What reduced mortality over time was gaining natural immunity, so having the infection once, early treatment programs, all of them reduced mortality. You need to use about 6 or 8 drugs in combination, including the emergency use authorized drugs. They were in the McCullough protocol, that's fine. And then the virus adopting mild and milder mutations. No, the vaccines did not save lives. There's not a single valid source of evidence to suggest the vaccines save lives. When vaccines save lives, by the way, the mechanism by which they do so is they dramatically reduce case count. And so when a vaccine makes a disease go away, then there's obviously reduced mortality because there's no more cases of the disease. In this case, COVID marched on irrespective of the vaccine program at all. And that's the reason why we're 5 years into the pandemic. United States, we're at 6 total injections for someone healthy, 10 for someone immunocompromised, and patients still get COVID.
You're still doing research. Have you found there is any connection between vaccines and cancers?
Multiple papers have demonstrated that link, and I'm an author on some of them, Kara Goglis and colleagues. Recently at McCullough Foundation, we published a case of bladder cancer in a woman, and the vaccine was found right in the cancer tissue. It's right there. So the vaccines cause cancer. Every cancer specimen should be examined for presence of the vaccine and for the vaccine spike protein.
Now they are admitted, CDC admitted that there is 10 children who are directly connected with COVID vaccines. That means death of that children is confirmed it's from COVID vaccines. What is your opinion about this?
We already had confirmation in the peer-reviewed literature that the vaccine was the cause of death in children. So the FDA is very late. I mean, this is already autopsy proven in the peer-reviewed literature. A paper by Gill and colleagues, had 2 proven autopsy cases of Pfizer fatal heart damage in children. So we don't really need the FDA to come out and say this, but somebody at the FDA who was ethical leaked a memo And the FDA had 96 deaths after the vaccine, and they've conceded 10 of them directly due to the shot. One of them is young Ernesto Ramirez from Texas. I had a chance to review his autopsy, and for sure, I said in 2021 he died of the vaccine. So this was known publicly. The FDA is conceding 10 out of 96. Now, in our vaccine adverse event reporting system, there's probably 200 children who have died due to the vaccine, and that's underreported about 30-fold. So the real number out there of childhood vaccine deaths is probably about 600 American children. It's really such a sad tragedy.
Why they don't remove this mRNA vaccine from the market if they have such results?
Not a single country has issued a safety report of the vaccine, has issued a demand for investigation and inspection of the vaccines, and not a single country has pulled the vaccines off the market. And despite all of the rhetoric, Trump, Robert F. Kennedy, no one seems strong enough to pull them off the market. I think the real question is, what are the forces that are keeping the vaccines on the market? No one can seem to explain that.
Yeah, that's a very important question. But okay, we spoke just one day ago about a new paper what coming from France. And this paper, they are saying that even people who receive vaccines have a better results in a long term in all-cause deaths. We spoke about this paper. Can you tell us what was in this paper?
Well, here we are in 2025, and now a French agency report comes in about what happened back in 2021. So that should raise some suspicions. Why are they waiting so long? Now, the French National Agency has all the data on all the patients who took the vaccine. And what they did is they selectively picked individuals who took the first shot between May 1st and November 1st, and nobody before or after. They picked a selective age group. And so I can tell you, it looks like they kept looking and looking and looking for a group where mortality would be favorable for the vaccine. It's not a valid study. They should have included all the cases. It's not even a random sample of all cases. They have all the data. They intentionally picked a group where mortality was similar. But I can tell you, there were fewer of every single category of death in the group that they picked, including motor vehicle accidents and other things. So I can tell you, they actually picked what's considered a healthy vaccinee group. So people who tend to choose the vaccines tend to be more worried about their health, and they chose that group. So it's a completely invalid study. JAMA Open Network published it. I think it's a shame. There are 12 studies showing vaccines increase mortality, not decrease mortality.
Yeah, I published on my Facebook site everything and all explanation. Whoever wants to see can go there. It seems so that after that you get focused on all other vaccines, and you wrote a book, Vaccine, Mythology, Ideology, and Reality. Can you tell us why you mentioning, for example, this word mythology about vaccines?
Right. So this book is now a New York Times bestseller, Mythology, Vaccines, Mythology, Ideology, and Reality. The mythology of vaccines is, developed over 300 years, that they would have mystical properties, that they would save populations, that you could take a shot as a baby and it would protect the body for the entire lifetime. And so many of these claims were false, that there was bold hubris, a lot of fear of infectious disease, and a lot of money and power all rolled up together. And so from the very beginning, the vaccine industry was corrupt, and it depended on a religious ideology. People were asked to accept vaccines based on religious faith. And the ideology went like this. It said that humans are vulnerable to infectious disease, but the brilliance of mankind and science can improve the human body, improve upon God's creation. Yes, that means man improves God's creation. And with that, vaccines can save humanity. That's how this was presented. Now, since the vaccines aren't perfect, vaccine ideology says everybody must take them, everyone without exception. And if there are any injuries or disabilities or even death after vaccination, then people should accept that for the betterment of humanity. That's vaccine ideology. And so it is a stunning development. Look at the coin on the front of the book, the iconography. This is a 20 euro coin issued by the Pope Francis in 2022. It's a boy about to receive the Eucharist. But instead of receiving the body and blood of Christ, he's receiving the COVID vaccine. So you can see that the church, in this case, the Vatican, has replaced the role of Christ as Savior with the COVID vaccine. So you can see how far this has gone.
Yes, very interesting thing. I was listening your colleague, John Leakes, who is co-author of this book, in the Tucker Carlson show, and he was explaining these symbols about this coin, what you're mentioning, and why Pope give a bless for vaccines. Even he said that it's act of mercy. Can you tell us a little bit more about this?
Well, even the Pope accepted vaccines based on faith. You know, he assumed the vaccines would work. He assumed they were going to be safe and that it would show mercy if we use them. We should never assume any of those things. And so the vaccines were presented as an article of faith, like a talisman. And people accepted it based on faith, not based on science. And that's the reason why we saw all this irrational behavior around vaccines, people losing their jobs or kicked out of the military or couldn't go to school if they didn't take the vaccine. That's part of this irrational, delusional vaccine ideology.
Yes, he even said that there is a reason why they push it so hard to the military, because they want to show that if military taking somebody who is young and they knew from the start that this disease is not danger for young, healthy people, but still they push it because they want to send a message.
So much of it was about messaging. And in the United States, we've had a U.S. Senate hearing on this May 21st, 2025. I was the lead witness. Senator Ron Johnson was the majority chair, and Richard Blumenthal, the ranking member of the committee, the Homeland Security Committee of Governmental Affairs, the permanent subcommittee on investigations. And the conclusions of our deliberations is that the government covered up myocarditis or heart damage that occurs in young men, particularly in the military. And Israel had sent a report to the United States of 62 young men in the Israeli Defense Force, 2 of whom died of myocarditis. And the U.S. government covered it up to have more people vaccinated.
You are also a cardiologist, and I heard from some people that this is just mild pericarditis and myocarditis. Is there such a thing like mild?
No, that's an incorrect characterization. In the published studies on myocarditis, of which there's hundreds, about 90% of young people are hospitalized. And then the mortality rate, in a paper by Rose and colleagues, I'm a co-author, mortality rate was 3.9%. And then in a paper by Takahara from Japan, the mortality rate was 9.6%. So no, myocarditis is not mild because hospitalization and death qualify it as a serious adverse event.
On the front page of your book is also DNA chain. Why?
Because since 2004, the real development here in vaccines is to use genetic products. So genetic products entered the veterinary market for pets, for dogs and cats and cattle in 2017. And now we're seeing genetic vaccines, not only for SARS-CoV-2 infection, COVID-19, but also for respiratory syncytial virus. And one of the leading genetic companies of which is working with the United States is Moderna. Moderna has nearly 36 genetic vaccines in development.
Yeah, you are in the book explaining how this mechanism works. There's a part who translate, there's a part who transcript. Can you explain us a little?
The messenger RNA, this genetic code, once it's inserted in the body, it's read by ribosomes, which produce the protein. In the case of COVID-19, it's the SARS-CoV-2 spike protein. And then it's reused. And now normally messenger RNA is degraded by normal human enzymes. But Pfizer and Moderna is made permanent and synthetic by a process called pseudouridination. And Carrico and Weizmann won the Nobel Prize for inventing that process, but it's a disaster for a vaccine. The body should have a vaccine in the body for a day or two, produce immunity, and the vaccine should be gone. We have data from my clinic here that patients who took Pfizer, for instance, still have the vaccine in the body for over 3 years since they've taken the shot. This is very disturbing.
You're talking about spike protein that they found in the body.
No, we found the messenger RNA for Pfizer and the spike protein exactly 3.2 years after the shots in the blood.
That means insertion happened, because that was very big question from the start.
It's possible. It's possible that there could be insertion into the human genome. That's called reverse transcription. But in the published study we have of our cancer patient, it was only 20 base pairs out of the 1,200 base pairs in the genetic code. So I think, certainly reverse transcription can occur. It's been described by Alden and colleagues in Malmo, Sweden. But I think what we're seeing, the major reason why people are sick is because they can't get rid of the genetic code. It's permanent, and it's just being passed from cell to cell and used over and over again.
What this can have a long-term consequences?
Well, there are now papers published suggesting it's going to shorten lifespan. People are not going to live it longer because the spike protein contributes to heart disease and cancer as the leading causes of death, and it may contribute to, other causes of death. So I think there's a great concern now that, human health has been irrevocably harmed for those who took the vaccine. It may be harmed, by the way, for everybody who's gotten COVID as well. So I didn't take the vaccine. I'm in the 19% in America who didn't take the vaccine, but maybe the spike protein from the infection itself may be harming, the health of people who had the infection, which is just about everybody.
Let's go a little bit about these pediatric vaccines. Just now, United States removed recommendation for hepatitis B vaccine for just child born, first day born. Why they done it?
Well, there's been tremendous pressure on the U.S. government since the release of the McCullough Foundation report. So the McCullough Foundation spent a year putting together the most comprehensive report on autism, the neuropsychiatric epidemic in children. And in this report, which has been published on the European Commission preprint server, it was sent to Robert F. Kennedy and those at HHS on October 27th, 2025. He concluded that vaccines in combination were a risk factor for the development of autism, in addition to other factors. And this includes starting with the hepatitis B vaccine at birth. This report was so powerful, within 3 weeks, our U.S. CDC changed its language on its website, saying that vaccines, in fact, have not been ruled out as a risk factor for autism. And then we looked at the hepatitis B vaccine schedule in the United States, where 3.6 million live births occur per year. And there's no risk for hepatitis B. They're born to mothers who have blood tests that are negative for hepatitis B. And so the vaccine can't possibly help the babies. So it was dropped after deliberations for the first time. And the 25,000 live births that the mothers are hepatitis B positive, and about, more than half come from foreign countries into the United States. The other part are IV drug abusers, prostitutes, and others, who have high-risk lifestyles. They receive a drug called tenofovir in the third trimester. They received hepatitis B immunoglobulin and the hepatitis B vaccine. So the hepatitis B vaccine is part of a strategy to reduce transmission of the virus to the baby. It's part of a strategy, but it only applies to 25,000 deliveries, not 3.6 million. So that's a big change. And I think we're going to see a lot more coming because of concerns that the entire burden of vaccines is related to autism.
Can you tell us a little bit more about this report? Is there any connection between other vaccines and autism? What is connection? Is there causation or just correlation? That's a very important question. Everybody is asking. I know lots of my friends who have the same question. Some of them even have a problem because they have a child with autism. Mm-hmm. It's very important what this report is saying.
Well, when you and I were children, autism was estimated to be 1 in 10,000. Now it's 1 in 31 in the United States. Pretty similar to that of Australia or even WHO data. It's an absolute epidemic. It's probably 3 to 4% of children have this neuropsychiatric condition. 27% of them have profound autism, meaning can't speak, can't use the bathroom alone, have special needs lifelong. They're disabled. There's more disabled children today with autism, profound autism, than there ever were with polio, believe it or not. So autism is a massive problem. Now the literature weighs in. Our report suggests well over 100 studies have found that a big bundle of vaccines, typically given around 1 year of age. So that means measles, mumps, rubella vaccine, influenza, pneumococcal, diphtheria, tetanus, pertussis, Haemophilus influenza B, hepatitis B. It's a big bundle of vaccines given at once. The child develops inflammation in the brain called encephalitis, then can have be fussy, pain, have a fever, and then have a seizure, and then the child regresses into autism. They actually lose the progress they've made in their development. That's the classic case. And this is peer-reviewed and published. A case by Poling and colleagues from Johns Hopkins chronicled exactly that sequence in the daughter of the first author. And the U.S. Court of Claims admitted that the vaccines caused autism, and they worked out a financial deal with him. So I can tell you this is real, and parents need to take a careful look at this. And it looks like the vaccines do play a direct role in the genesis of autism. And the mechanism is brain inflammation. About 20 vaccines list as a side effect inflammation of the brain in the child called encephalitis. When there's inflammation and the inflammation, resolves, the child can be left with a neurologic problem like attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, autism, tics or involuntary facial motor movements, and then seizures. And so there's a paper by Nielsen and colleagues, it's quoted in our reports from Sweden. If a child before the age of 9 develops a fever and has a seizure, then there's about a 40% chance they'll convert to one of these neurologic disorders.
If you now have a chance to make a decision in the United States concerning vaccine schedule, what would you recommend for children from first day of born until 18 years old?
World Council for Health out of the UK, which is a physician-led, evidence-based, consensus-driven organization. In a sense, they're an alternative to the WHO. They've issued guidance in 2023. It's called Safer to Wait. We should actually wait on all these vaccines. A healthy child is born, no vaccines, get through those early years of life. And then, later on consider vaccines depending on risk. So as an example, first responders, police officers, firemen, doctors, nurses, they should consider the hepatitis B vaccine because we can actually acquire it through needle stick injuries, scalpels, and other things. I'm a doctor, I'm a cardiologist. I took the hepatitis B vaccine. I think it's fine to take it when there's an occupational risk, but just not to give it to every single child born early in life. None of the vaccines last very long to even provide protection.
What about statement that vaccines eradicate, for example, some of diseases like polio or seizures?
I think that's part of this vaccine mythology, and that's very important. We address that in our book. That's a myth. Infectious diseases went down and mortality went down because of better sanitation, food and water, better living conditions. And we know that because illnesses for which there's no vaccines went down, like scarlet fever and tuberculosis, and we can go on and on. So vaccines could not have made diseases go away. The diseases went away in the 20th century as living conditions improved. In fact, the diseases all came down and the mortality came down significantly long before vaccine was introduced.
What about flu vaccine? We're listening every day that just in Croatia said that there is a too small group of people who took flu vaccine. That's why we're going to have epidemic. What do you think about flu vaccine?
About half of America takes a flu vaccine, and virtually all the high-risk individuals in the United States takes flu vaccine. So we're very compliant with the program. The flu vaccine simply doesn't work. People get influenza anyway. We have 4 FDA-approved antiviral drugs, secondary antibiotics. So the flu vaccine essentially doesn't work, and we have good treatment anyway.
Can you tell me just a little bit about your specialty? You are a cardiologist, and there is some also thing that you investigate in this part. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
So yeah, I practice both adult internal medicine and cardiology, and I'm very interested in heart inflammation or myocarditis that occurs from the vaccine. And we've investigated this. The myocarditis does not happen with the infection. So the SARS-CoV-2 virus is not found in the human heart. And just the tip of the S1 protein gets into the human body. The vaccine is found in the human heart. Pfizer and Moderna are found in the human heart. The spike protein causes inflammation and damage. So vaccine myopericarditis is a very serious illness. Patients are acutely hospitalized and can die with it. And we've recently published a paper in the Journal of the European Society of Medicine demonstrating that over time, people can develop subclinical vaccine myopericarditis, where they have subtle chest pain, palpitations, other symptoms. And in fact, the vaccine is causing damage to the heart. Then a paper by Koizumi and colleagues from Japan, very concerning, patients taking several boosters and then having a cardiac arrest. And he found micro scars in the heart that account for the risk of sudden cardiac death.
Did I understood you well? You want to say that there is no myocarditis after COVID-19 illness?
Right. There's no significant risk of myocarditis after the illness. Remember, in 2020, there's no vaccine. So this was well studied. A paper by Daniels and colleagues in JAMA studied tens of thousands of athletes with blood testing, echocardiography, MRI. No, the infection does not cause serious myocarditis or myopericarditis, but the vaccine does. The vaccine causes heart damage in large numbers, and sadly, people have lost their lives from it.
Yeah, because I'm listening, they're repeating, there is a risk from COVID-19 also, and they said that this risk is higher than risk from vaccine. They're admitting now that vaccine causes myocarditis, but they said this illness, COVID-19, is also causing the same thing. That's very important that we get this straight. How is possible that all these things happen? Which force is standing behind this? Is this pharmaceutical force, political force? Who is pushing so hard?
In my book, my first book, Courage to Face COVID-19, we define what we call a biopharmaceutical complex, that there is now a working cartel, a working collaboration that's very powerful. They're dealing in trillions of dollars. It includes the World Economic Forum, the Gates Foundation, the Wellcome Trust, Rockefeller Foundation, Gavi, CEPI, the Coalition for Epidemic Preparedness and Innovation, founded by Gates and WEF, all the regulatory agencies, including the EMA and FDA, the TGA, the SAFRA in South Africa. We have a situation where this powerful organization, which really believes in vaccines, believes in the religion of vaccines, has so much money and power, and the companies making the vaccines are the suppliers, that, the enthusiasm is unbridled. The complex is so strong, they've corrupted the medical literature, they've corrupted the minds of public health leaders, and it doesn't matter who's in office. No one seems strong enough to go against these vaccines.
What are you expecting that will happen in the United States in the near future concerning whole program of mRNA, concerning investigation about pandemic, about source of this SARS-CoV-2 virus, and what are your forecasting for the next potential pandemic? Because all the time they are talking about new pandemics, especially WHO.
Well, let me say, we'll go back to that French agency study. One of the important tables in that study indicates after the first 3 shots, no one was taking the 4th shot. No one. Way less than 1%. Our CDC and the EMA and WHO are not reliably reporting who took 4 shots or 5 shots. I think basically no one's taking the shots right now. Trust has been lost. I don't think people are going to take messenger RNA vaccines for influenza or respiratory syncytial virus. People are dropping vaccines altogether. In a recent study by Mawson and Binu from Florida, about 10% of children now are not taking any vaccines, and that number is going to skyrocket. So this is actually going to backfire on this biopharmaceutical complex. They really can't win people don't take vaccines. Now, sadly, the governments keep buying these vaccines and no one's taking them. So they just throw the vaccines away. That's going on, and the companies still make money and the NGOs still make money. But at some point in time, this giant experiment will come to an end. I predict the COVID vaccines will stay on the market and no one will take them for many years. I predict that people will now individually start to reject vaccines. Those who are promoting vaccines will still stay in power for decades until, honestly, until there's turnover of leadership. But there probably will be a next pandemic. The CEPI, the Coalition for Epidemic Preparedness Innovation, founded by the Gates Foundation and the World Economic Forum, they wrote a whole white paper on disease X. And they said there'll be another pandemic and it'll be just like COVID. And just like COVID, it'll come out of a research biolab because there are now so many man-made viruses created that can get the whole world sick.
Consequences of all of this, it's lack of confidence in institutions. What is in the United States now situation?
There's a massive loss of confidence in institutions. People are furious that their doctors recommended the COVID vaccines and they've lost family members, they've developed new problems. A recent Rasmussen survey indicates that 10% of Americans who took the vaccine have a new medical problem now. They've got some new cardiovascular problem or neurologic problem or even cancer, 10%. And so trust has been lost. People are not following doctors' recommendations right now, and they're seeking alternatives. In the United States, many patients are going to the wellness company. They can, in Croatia, they can go to the wellness company as well for innovative products and solutions.
Yes, that was my question for the end, because it's very important for people in Croatia who have a problem because of vaccines on any other problem, what they can do, how you can help them.
Well, we developed a product that's the only evidence-based, peer-reviewed, scientifically supported product. It's called the Ultimate Spike Detox. From the wellness company, you can get this on Amazon. You can get similar products available in Europe. There's a product from Italy available to you called Full Detox. It's very similar. But we've developed the products that contain combinations of natural enzymes like nattokinase, bromelain, curcumin, and then some other natural ingredients. People need to take this for a year or longer, and that slowly gets the spike protein out of the body. We still have the problem with the messenger RNA. We think ultimately it's eliminated through sweat. It may undergo some breakdown. Otherwise, we tell patients we want them to go in saunas and sweat, hyperbaric oxygen, other natural treatments. But we measure the antibody against the spike protein as an important blood test. We want to see that antibody go down, implying that there's less spike antigen in the system, stimulating that antibody production.
And if any doctor wants to contact you and ask you for any advice, where they can find you?
They can go to the McCullough Foundation, mcculloughfnd.org. We also take charitable donations. Visit my professional website, petermcculloughmd.com. And of course, get a subscription to Focal Points like you do. Every day you'll get a newsletter. There's always a dialogue. And then my podcast, America Out Loud Talk Radio, McCullough Report. So there's many ways to contact me. Now, I do get a lot of messages because it's a big world, and I answer as many as I possibly can. But if people can understand that those who've had the COVID, who have long COVID syndrome or have taken the vaccine, they need the Ultimate Spike Detox from the wellness company. Just follow the instructions on the bottle. It's the only evidence-based, scientifically supported approach to handle this problem right now. And as there's more scientific discoveries, I'm sure we're going to update it and we'll see more products.
Dr. McCullough, thank you very much. Thank you for your time, for your expertise, and continue with the good work.
Thank you.
Evo, dragi narode, prvo odmah da kažem, dakle, nikakav interes nemam u tome što gospodin McCullough prodaje, neću dobiti nikakvu nagradu za to. Moj ovdje interes je da vas upoznam sa informacijama, sa činjenicama, na vama je dalje što ćete s tim učiniti. Međutim, htio bih reći ovdje zašto ponovno ova tema. Pa ova tema neće nikad prestati. Dakle, to je nešto slično što u Hrvatskoj možemo naći oko ustaša i partizana. Još uvijek se razgovaramo o nečemu što je bilo prije 80 godina. Zašto? Vrlo vjerojatno zato što nismo raščistili prošlost. Tako i ovo što se događalo za vrijeme pandemije također nismo raščistili, nego guramo pod tepih. Danas i dalje se vode rasprave, baš najsvježija rasprava o tome kako su Francuzi svojom studijom dokazali da se ipak to cjepivo nije uzrokovalo višak smrtnosti, nego još bolje ljudi su dulje živjeli, na kraju ispada naravno da je to sve ipak bilo namješteno, da se upravljalo tim istraživanjima sa željom da se dokaže nešto, a ne da se pronađe i istraži. I danas, nažalost, opet ne možemo imati povjerenje ni u te institucije, niti u te studije, jer kad pogledate i prođete kroz studiju, što sam i sam učinio i konzultirao sam se sa gospodinom McCulloughom i drugim koje poznajem, a koji su bili kod mene gosti i koji su mi upravo upozorili na te detalje koji pokazuju da u stvari to nije ozbiljan rad, nego propagandni alat kako bi se poslala poruka. Kao što sam rekao, izgubilo se povjerenje, nismo stvari raščistili, još uvijek je, mora se znati da je 5,3 milijuna doza administrirano u Hrvatskoj, dakle to je otišlo negdje. Ako se ovdje pronaše nakon 3 godine da se još uvijek nalazi antitijela zbog toga što je još uvijek stimuliran proizvodnja tog i spike proteina, to znači da je to ozbiljan problem, da se to mora raščišćavati. A da ne kažem da, ponavljam po ko zna koji put, da smo za tu situaciju pandemije čuli kako je to najteža situacija od Domovinskog rata. Također smo čuli da su se naše javne vlasti, javnozdravstvene vlasti i političari borili s tim za ocjenu odličan, a onda nitko ne želi istraživati što su to napravili. Nitko ne želi da dobijemo kroz istraživanje potvrdu toga da je uistinu napravljen odličan posao, a sjetimo se da je Domovinski rat istraživan i još i dan danas se istražuje, imamo i one koje nismo pronašli, a prošlo je 30 godina od završetka. Dakle, kako je moguće da smo nešto istraživali 30 godina poslije, a sad ni 2 ili 3 godine poslije ne želimo o tome ni pričati. Dakle, moj cilj je da se istraži, da konačno saznamo istinu. Nije to bila samo javno-zdravstveni problem i nemamo samo javno-zdravstvene posljedice. Imamo i ekonomske posljedice. Mi smo danas dužni dodatne milijarde eura upravo koji su uzeti kako bi se oporavili od lockdowna koji su političari donijeli. Oni su odlučili o toj odluci. Nisu javno-zdravstveni istraživači ili neka znanost dokazali išta, nego su oni jednostavno odlučili da idu tim smjerom i onda nas sve zadužili do 2058. godine i to sindicirano. To znači da mi jamčimo svakoj zemlji u Europskoj uniji za kredite koji su uzeti. Da li želite da jednog dana naša djeca plaćaju te dugove, a da mi ni ne znamo zašto smo uopće poduzeli i zašto smo uopće uzeli te kredite? Naravno, ako bi se to istražilo, onda bi se mogli pitati i odgovornost. I za kraj, naravno, da spominjem da danas je ministar koji je iz tog vremena bio ministar, gospodin Beroš, je osumnjičen za korupciju upravo iz tog razdoblja, iz razdoblja kad je trajala pandemija, za novac koji je dolazio upravo te kredite o kojima govorim sada, koji smo mi uzeli svi zajedno do 2058. godine, dio tog novca osumnjičen je da je uzeo i on. Pa za stvarno mislio da od toliko milijardi bi to bila jedina sumnjiva situacija. Možda je to glavni razlog zašto se ne istražuje. Ali evo, ja sam htio danas vam predstaviti i stručnjaka i nekoga ko to još dan danas radi. Možete doći na njegovu stranicu, provjeriti, možete ga pratiti na društvenim mrežama, svaku novu informaciju objavi, to su ozbiljni radovi, možete provjeravati i kritizirati na kraju krajeva, poslati recenziju i reći da nešto nije u redu i to je pravo svakoga. Dakle, prilika je da se o tome raščisti, raspravi, da mi znamo gdje smo, a ja ću se truditi ovom emisijom pridonijeti tome. Hvala lijepo na pažnji i uskoro se vidimo u sljedećoj epizodi Slobodni.
Nitko vas neće natjerati da se poklonite zvijeri, učinit ćete to svoje voljno, odbacujući vjeru. Bićete laka meta za zvijeri, jer se niste podredili vjeri. Ako se ne podredite vjeri, podredit ćete se zvijeri. Toliko ćete se suobličiti sa ovim svijetom, da nećete ni prepoznati da ste u zabludi. Biće to najveća demonska prevara ikada i pravedno zaslužena osuda nad nepokajanim grešnicima.
Gdje su svi oni koji su nas vjerili?